Hi everyone, welcome to Mendoza Makes. I'm Michelle Mendoza, and today we are going to be doing diner dishes numero dos. The idea with diner dishes was to recreate dishes that we can't have right now because we're in quarantine, restaurants are closed, we're not supposed to be going out, but I still had a craving for these foods, so I decided that I wanted to recreate them at home so that I could still have them while I was stuck at home. Today we're gonna recreate a huge burrito from Calitaco, which is in Orange County and also I believe San Diego, but Southern California area. One of the best things about Southern California is the Mexican food, and this burrito is giant and it is tasty. Let's go. Okay, but before I get into actually making it, I'm gonna go on their website, do a little bit of research, because I'm pretty sure I remember everything that's in it, but it's been a few years since I've had one, so I'm gonna just look up what they say is in the burrito and then go from there. Ending hunger one burrito at a time. Yeah, you are. Yeah, this is the thing, the Angel Burrito. This thing is huge. Okay, according to the website, it has shrimp, guacamole, sour cream, cheese, rice, fries, chipotle sauce, double wrapped with choice of meat. Double wrapped? Does that mean there's two tortillas? I don't remember there being two tortillas. Meat, carne asada, pollo asada, carnitas, or adobada. So I'm gonna make carne asada. For the rice, I'm gonna make cilantro lime rice because I have figured out the best way to make cilantro lime rice. So good. So I'll show you guys that. Okay, so for the marinade, I'm going to roast some peppers and tomatoes with some garlic. I'm just going to put them in the oven on a high broil until the skins start to kind of blacken and I can peel them off. I also decided that I'm going to make some salsa because we don't have any salsa in the house right now. So I'm going to make the marinade and the salsa kind of at the same time. These are just jalapeno peppers. These are beefsteak tomatoes, but you can also use Roma tomatoes. And then I have some poblano peppers and some whole garlic cloves. Usually the way that I can tell to check it the first time is when I smell the peppers. One of the really, the easiest things and the most important things that I've learned is just to use your senses when you're cooking. When you smell something, that usually means that you need to stir it, it's done cooking, or you need to add something. You know, something needs to happen. Your nose is telling you like, hey, you need to do something. So that's usually how I tell the first time that I need to go turn them is when I can smell the peppers. So I want you to be able to see the difference over time so that you guys can see what I'm talking about and how to tell when your vegetables are done roasting, when to turn them, that kind of thing. So here's what they look like right now. I just put them in the oven on high broil, and I'll show you what they look like in a couple minutes. Okay, so I just started smelling the peppers. It's been about 3 minutes. So you can see that they've already started to kind of blacken the skin on top, even the jalapenos. And see the tomatoes, like they've started to blacken. So I'm going to turn them. I'm gonna pull this out so you can see. And I'm just going to rotate everything so that it keeps getting broiled. Because see, like this side isn't blackened yet. And I'm just gonna keep doing this same thing where I open it and rotate the vegetables until they're blackened on all sides. In the meantime, while I wait for the vegetables, I'm gonna get the rice going. The problem with my cilantro lime rice I've always had is that it never tastes limey enough. A thought that occurred to me is that when you cook rice, you cook it in water and the rice absorbs the water that you put in there. So I thought, oh, what if I put the lime juice in with the water before you cook the rice and it soaks up the lime flavor and the water at the same time? And it worked so well, so I highly recommend you do that. It is so good. So I have a 1.5 cups of water, and I'm gonna do a cup of rice. This is jasmine rice, but you could use white rice or brown rice if you want. And I'm just making it to the package instructions, basically. So now I've added my water. I'm also gonna add some salt because, like I said, the same thought goes, like whatever's in this water, the rice is gonna soak it up as it cooks. So I want it to be nice and seasoned and flavored with the lime juice. So I'm gonna put it in beforehand. Now the cilantro I don't add now though, because cilantro is kind of delicate and it will wilt and it will not survive with the rice cooking it has to simmer for 15 minutes. Cilantro will not survive that so well, but the lime juice definitely. I'm gonna give it a stir, and then I know this is kind of weird, but I'm gonna taste the water because I want it to be salty and acidic. That's not very acidic, so I'm gonna add more lime actually. I'm gonna add another tablespoon of this. This is a good cooking technique for basically everything. Just stir it, taste it, and then adjust it to what you want it to taste like. Okay, that tastes slimy to me, so that's good. So now I'm gonna bring this to a boil and then let it simmer for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then we're gonna add the cilantro. All right, time to check the peppers again. It has been about 6 or 7 minutes since I checked on it last. So let's see. See, they're getting nice and black and soft. They'll remain puffed up until I take them out of here, away from the heat. I'll show you guys that. They kind of, when you take them out and set them to the side to cool down, they kind of deflate and, but see, I know these aren't done yet because they're not black. They're not soft and black like this all the way around. So see how that's blackened, and you can see that the skin is like soft, but not over here. Over here it's still taut and lots of moisture in there. So I'm gonna just rotate them to the other side to get them black on all sides. And then what we're gonna do with this is take the roasted vegetables and blend them with seasonings and cilantro. And that's our marinade and kind of our salsa, just with some other stuff added. So this is gonna be good. I'm gonna check on the peppers one more time. The longer they are in here, the more often you wanna check them. But I don't really set a timer. I just, every couple minutes, every like 2 or 3 minutes, go check on them. If this is like the first time that you're doing it and you're nervous about them burning or something like that, you can check on them more often. And then honestly, the more often you do it, the more you'll know when to check them without having to set a timer or something. But these are looking like they're pretty much done, but the jalapenos don't look like they're quite there yet. So I think what I'm gonna do is take these peppers, the tomatoes, and the garlic out and leave the jalapenos in there for a little bit longer. So this is what my veggies look like right now. See, the poblano kind of like shrank a bit, but this is what you want. You want this like crinkly, blackened skin, because what I'm gonna do is peel that skin off before I put it in the blender. So while I'm waiting for my jalapenos to finish roasting and the cilantro lime rice, I'm gonna go ahead and start prepping my meat so that it's ready to go in the marinade. But I'm actually gonna cut it into smaller chunks right now and then put it in the marinade, with the idea that when you cut it into smaller chunks, it has more surface area to absorb the marinade that you're putting it in. So if I was going to use these whole, like eat these whole when they were finished, I would just leave them whole and put them in. But because I'm putting them in a burrito, I'm going to end up cutting the meat smaller anyway, so I might as well cut it now so that it can absorb more of the marinade. I'm actually pretty sure that our jalapenos are done now. Yeah, they're done. Okay, so I'm actually going to take these out. Try to do this one-handed because my other hand is covered in meat juice. So the next step is going to be to peel the skin off of the tomatoes and the peppers. So I'm gonna let these cool down before I do that because I don't want to burn my fingers while I do it. And in the meantime, we'll go finish cutting the meat. So what I'm doing is just cubing it, and then I'm going to put it into a Ziploc bag. And then once I have my marinade blended, I'm gonna put the marinade into the bag with the meat so that it can sit there for a bit. The rice just beeped that it was done. So I'm gonna go ahead and add the cilantro now. I'm gonna taste it first, see how limey it is, and make sure it's done all the way through. Because if it's not, then I need to put it back on the heat. Make sure not to burn your tongue though. Soft, creamy, limey, delicious. It absorbed all the flavor from the lime and the salt. Super flavorful. So, that's good. I'm gonna add the cilantro, and then I'm just gonna stir it up. There's my cilantro lime rice. Looks pretty good. Okay, now it's time to contend with our vegetables. So what I'm gonna do, this is cooled down now, so it's not that hot. What I'm gonna do is peel off the skin of the tomatoes and the peppers. When you're dealing with peppers, don't use your bare hands. Wear gloves because the capsaicin that's in the peppers will get on your hands and it will be so hot. Like the one time that I made the mistake and I was like, I don't need gloves, and I did this and I peeled all the skins off and I got it all over my hands, and all night my hands felt like they were on fire. It hurts so bad. It doesn't matter how many times I washed my hands. I soaked them in Dawn dish soap and then tried to wash them. I put lotion. Nothing worked. It was horrible. So just wear gloves and then everything will be fine. You won't have to worry about that. So what I'm gonna do is just peel the skin off, and it should come off very easily because we roasted it. Easy peasy. And then for the peppers, I usually start at the stem and try to just pinch a section off, and then I just start peeling it off. I try to get it in as big of a chunk as I can. The more you roast it, the softer the pepper will be and the easier the skin will be able to peel off. And then the other thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pinch off the stems and scrape out the seeds, but I'm gonna do that last. If the peppers break open, like this one broke open, or especially the poblano peppers, they tend to like tear really easily, that's fine. We're gonna blend them anyway, so it doesn't really matter if they're all kind of messed up or mangled. Just get the skin off and the seeds out. That's your goal, because we don't want either of those to be blended into our salsa or the marinade. And if you don't get every single little piece of skin, that's fine. You just want to get most of it off. Well, first I'm going to do the marinade because we need to get the meat going. So I'm going to use 2 of the poblano peppers in there and 1 of the tomatoes. So what I'm doing is just pinching here so that I get the stem out, pulling it out, and then I'm kind of just tearing it down one of the seams of the pepper, and then I'm just going to use my fingers and scrape all these seeds out like this. Pretty easy. And then I'm just going to add it to the blender. So I think for the marinade, now the jalapenos are pretty spicy, like that's where a lot of the heat is going to come from, and the spice. And I want the meat to be pretty spicy because all the other elements in the burrito that we're making, like there's potatoes, the shrimp, the rice. The rice and the shrimp are going to be our acidic flavor because of the lime. And then we have our creamy flavor that's going to be from the sour cream and the guacamole. And then our potatoes are going to add some like salty flavor, but we don't really get any other spice anywhere else. So I'm going to use the meat to contribute that like spicy flavor. So I want it to be pretty spicy to get that across. And I think I'll go with 3 garlic cloves in the marinade. Something that helps me a lot with cooking in general is really thinking about what the dish overall is going to taste like and what each element is going to add to that, so that you can change the way that you make each element that goes into it to contribute to the overall flavor of the dish when you're done. Oh, I forgot to take out the stem of the tomato of the other one, darn it. Take out the stem. That doesn't taste very good. Not a good texture. We want that moisture though. We want that moisture from the tomato. When I first started making this, I always added water because I didn't realize how much moisture is in the peppers and the tomato. There's so much, you don't need to add water. I actually would make like really runny, watery salsa, and that's why, because I added water when there's so much moisture already in there. Doesn't need any more. I'm gonna add some salt, a little bit of pepper, add some of this lime. So I think I'll do, this is really sloppy measuring here. That's fine. I'm gonna do 3 tablespoons. And then I'm gonna just blend it up until it's smooth, and then pour it in with our meat and let it rest until we're ready to cook it. Okay, so here's my blended marinade. It's kind of thick and it smells spicy. Oh my God, woo! That's some spicy marinade. All right, so I'm gonna just pour it in here with the meat. All right, and then I'm gonna let this rest. If I had made this the night before, you can let it rest overnight, but we're making it the day of. Ideally, I would have made it yesterday so it could rest and marinate that whole time. And now I'm gonna make the salsa. So I took my gloves off and that was a mistake. So I'm just gonna use this. Seriously, this pepper, you will only make the mistake of de-seeding peppers with your bare hands once. And after that, you are like, nope, gloves every time. I think that was 1 poblano, 3 jalapenos, 4 garlic cloves, and 1 whole tomato. And then I'm gonna use some salt and a little bit of lime. Probably not that much. Probably just 1 tablespoon in there. And then we blend. Now I'm gonna just give it a taste. And I'm tasting for if it's salty enough, does it need more lime? Oh my God, that's spicy. Woo! Oh yeah. Oh, that's spicy. Woo, yeah. Okay. Salsa is one of those things that make it to your taste. If you like it thinner than this, add some water, because this is actually pretty thick. I like mine thick like this. I like it to stick to my chip and be like, you know, have some volume to it and not be so watery. But if you like yours more watery, add some water or add another tomato. That'll add a lot of moisture in without having to dilute the flavor with water. If you like it more tomato-y, then use more tomato and less pepper. If you don't want it so spicy, don't use as many peppers. Use like 1 jalapeno or even half of a jalapeno. And if you're hesitant about the spice level, you can always do like a whole tomato, do half of a jalapeno, blend it, and then see how spicy it is. Because one of the issues that I run into with peppers is that some of them are really spicy and some of them are more of a like fresh green flavor, but they don't have very much spice. And you never know what it's gonna taste like until you taste it. And if you're doing what I did and roasting it first, you can't really tell how spicy it's gonna be until it's already in the blender. So you can always add more afterwards, but if you've already added the entire pepper and it's way too hot for you to eat, it's kind of already done. There's no way to pull that out of the blender. So just add a little bit at a time until you get to the spice level that you like. Salsa and the marinade are done. The meat's marinating. I'm gonna set the salsa aside and then I'm gonna start working on the potato. This is either gonna be a good idea or it's gonna make a giant mess. But I feel like if I just unscrew the bottom. Oh! Nailed it! Yes! It worked! That could have been a giant mess. I also have to give credit to another YouTube channel that I've been watching for a while for this idea, because I just made the salsa up. I don't really have a recipe. I didn't follow a recipe. I just got the idea from another YouTube channel that I watch and tried it a couple times, and it worked really well, so I've stuck with it. And just roasting the ingredients and then blending them up was just genius to me. It's so simple, so good. It gives it a roasted flavor. I'll put the link to their channel in my description if you want to check it out. It is in Spanish, which I've been learning Spanish, so it's teaching me Spanish and cooking at the same time. Next up is the potato situation. I know that the burrito says it has french fries in it, but I think what I might do instead is just make kind of home fries, or just kind of cube the potatoes and then fry them in a skillet rather than deep frying. I think that'll be easier, less messy, and honestly, if it's gonna be in a burrito anyway, with all of the moisture from like the salsa and the guacamole and the sour cream and everything, they're not gonna stay crispy. It'll get soft and mushy anyway. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start by just washing and peeling my potatoes, and then I'm going to cube them. Now, I'm just gonna do these two. This one's pretty large, this one's kind of small. But I'm just gonna do these two because it's just me and my husband, so I'm not going to make like enough for a crowd, you know. Just gonna make enough for us to eat. And this potato, you can see, has started to sprout, and there was a big sprout right here. But you just take it off, it's totally fine. As long as the potato's still firm, it's fine. If it starts getting mushy, that's when you know it's bad and you need to just toss it. So if you're like me and you make a mess on your cutting board all the time, a bench scraper is great for cleaning it up. I literally just go like this and the entire mess is gone. Anytime I do anything with potatoes, I always envision that scene from My Big Fat Greek Wedding where she's still like got this mountain of potatoes and she's like, I peel the potatoes. But that's all. I don't really know what else to say about that, but that's what comes to mind at this moment. We chopped them, let's fry them. So my strategy for the potatoes is to start with a pretty high heat so that I can get a nice crusty brown on the edges or the outside. And then I'm gonna turn down the heat, maybe add a little bit of water for moisture, and then cover them so that they get nice and soft all the way through. Because I don't want them to be at high heat the whole time and burn, but I also want them to be nice and soft when I'm done. I'm just gonna leave them, I'm gonna add some salt. And now I'm just gonna leave them sit so that they can get that nice crust on the outside. So I can see that they're starting to brown a little bit, especially like this one. So the heat might be a little too high because it's getting black, so I'm gonna turn it down a little bit and make sure that I stir them. Okay, and now that I've stirred them around, I'm gonna just let them rest again so that they can get that crustiness. So my potatoes are getting pretty browned now, how I want them to be, pretty toasted, but they're not soft yet. Also, if you're cooking potatoes and you want them to be soft, but they're in chunks like this, you can like push on them with your spoon, or you can poke them with a fork, and the fork should go in with minimal resistance, like pretty easy. And if they were soft enough, like this spoon would even make an indent, and it's not really because the potato is still too tough. So I'm going to turn down the heat a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of water, cover them, and let them cook for another maybe like 3 or 4 minutes, and then check on them and see how soft they are. I'll know that they're done once they're to the softness that I want them to be. So my potatoes have been kind of steaming for a little bit, so I'm just going to take the lid off and I'm going to puncture them with a fork, kind of give them a poke and see how soft they are, if they need more time or not. Okay, they're getting softer, but they're not quite there yet. So when I don't know if you can see this, hopefully you can, but when I poke them with my fork, it goes in a little bit, but not all the way. They're kind of still tough, and I want them to be nice and soft in the burrito. I don't want there to be very much chew. So I'm gonna let them go for another like 2 minutes and then check them again. Also, I should say, be careful when you lift the lid on something like this. Always lift it so it's tipping away from you, because otherwise you're gonna get a face full of steam. Okay, I can smell the potatoes now, so I think they're probably done. Test them with a fork. Ooh yeah, they're nice and soft. Okay, so I'm gonna just turn this off and take my potatoes out. Oh, there are a couple of them that got kind of burnt, but that's okay. That's not the end of the world. So the potatoes are done. I'm gonna put these in a dish and set them aside, and then we're gonna make the meat. For the meat, it's been sitting in the marinade for a while, which is good. Ideally, again, you'd leave this overnight, then it would absorb even more of the flavor. But what I'm gonna do is take it out of here and pat it dry with paper towel, because I wanna get a nice crusty outside on the meat, and it won't crust up if it's wet, because there'll be too much moisture. I've patted the meat pretty dry, only mostly dry. It doesn't have to be all the way, but we had so much marinade in the bag that I don't want to cook the marinade, I want to cook the meat. To get that kind of crusty outside, you want your pan to be pretty hot. So I'm going to turn it up fairly high, and then when I put it in the pan, I'm going to try to lay the meat so that it gets the most contact with the pan directly, and then I'm gonna leave it sit there and not touch it. That's how you get the crust part. You have to just let it sit there for a while, longer than you think. And it's very tempting to put it in the pan and then want to stir it, but you have to just let it alone. And then let's add some meat. And I'm gonna do it in smaller batches so that I can get that nice crust on all of the sides of the meat. So I'm gonna let it get crusty on one side and then turn it to the next side and let that crust, and then, you know, repeat that with all of it. So I'm gonna just do it in kind of small batches. And I'm gonna make sure that it's like spread out a little bit, give it some room. And yes, this is gonna take longer, but it will be a better result in the end to do it in smaller batches rather than just cook it all in one. I've cooked it all in one before and realized that my mistake was adding too much meat to the pan, and so there was too much moisture and woo, smoky. And it ended up giving me kind of like a more rubbery texture. It was not good because I overcrowded the pan. I could probably put more in this pan, but since this is the first batch, I'm gonna just let it sit for a second and see how it goes. Oh, there's a little meat weasel here. He wants some meat. The dogs are like, somebody say meat. See how it kind of looks like it's bleeding? So that's a visual indicator to me that I can probably start rotating these. They're smaller pieces, so they're not gonna take that long. Also earlier, I mentioned using your senses, using your nose. So I can smell this and this browning happening. So I know that it's probably time to turn it over. And when I do, I can see that it's getting this crust, so I know that it's good. I'm gonna give it another couple minutes on that side. And I'm just gonna take them off and do the next batch. I will just repeat the steps until all the meat is cooked. And actually, now that I took this off, I'm gonna just try this little piece. Ooh, good pepper flavor from the marinade, that's good. I only let it sit in the marinade for probably an hour and a half while we were doing everything else, like the rice and potatoes and stuff. But apparently that was enough time, because it could be better, honestly, if I let it sit longer, but that's pretty good. And the crust of the outside is really nice. Hooray! Nailed it! So I'm just flipping over the last batch of the meat, And then once this is done, I'm gonna just add the shrimp to the pan. I actually had forgotten that there's shrimp in here. So I grabbed the shrimp and I'm gonna just add that to the pan after the meat is done. Cook that up, and then we should be ready to assemble the burrito. I think those are all the elements. We got the potatoes, the rice, meat, shrimp. I already made guacamole like I think a couple days ago. So I didn't make more guacamole. I don't have the stuff to make more anyway. So I'm sorry I couldn't show you guys that, but I will put the recipe that I use in the description. It's also similar to the salsa I make, where it's kind of just to your taste. The meat's pretty done. I'm gonna go ahead and take it off. Just let it rest. And I'm gonna add the shrimp to the pan. So for the shrimp, I'm just gonna go very simply with some butter and salt. It should cook up pretty quickly. If you've never cooked shrimp before, it's actually really easy and it's done really fast. They start gray like this, and then when you stick them in the pan, you can just let them rest, flip them over maybe once if you want, and you'll be able to tell that they're done when they turn pink. So I'm just gonna add a good amount of butter to my pan. That was probably a tablespoon if you wanted to measure. And then I'm gonna add my shrimp. And I'll just let them cook until they start getting pink. They're already starting to get pink, like they cook up really fast. So this is not a like, put it in the pan and then leave it and go walk away and do something else. This is kind of a, put it in the pan and you have to stay here and babysit it food. And I have my skillet on medium-high heat. Not as high as I did for the steak. I turned it down quite a bit. Ooh, that one looks good. Okay, that one's probably done. What I'm doing is looking for them to be pink and crispy like this. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off now. These are pretty done. And then we are going to assemble. All right, we got all of our burrito elements. I heated up the tortilla just for 20 seconds in the microwave just to make it warm and pliable. So I recommend doing that before you assemble your burrito. I didn't make the tortillas from scratch. I just used store-bought burrito ones. You could make them from scratch and I'm sure they'd be amazing. But with all the rest of the work that went into this burrito, I decided that I was just gonna use these. So let's assemble. I'm gonna take some of our rice. I always make the mistake of adding way too much stuff into my burritos. My husband makes fun of me for it. Because by the end, I can't even roll it because it's got so much stuff on the inside. So I'm gonna try to not do that, but with all the stuff in this burrito, it's really hard. Oh, and then we got shrimp. I'm just gonna use my hands. Screw you, spoon. My fingers are going. Okay, and then a little bit of cheese. Their website didn't have salsa listed on there, but I'm gonna put a bit of salsa in there because it's really good and I like the extra spice. They actually had chipotle sauce listed, and I think that they make their own like Cali sauce, which I remember being really, really good. It was like a chipotle, it was very creamy. So maybe that chipotle sauce is the Cali sauce that I'm remembering. But I decided to go with salsa instead. And guac. If you want to keep your guac green, what I recommend is once you make it, whatever container you're gonna put it in, push down on the top of it with saran wrap to make sure that there's no, like air can't get to it, because the air is what makes it brown. So if you seal it so that air can't get to the surface of the guacamole itself, then it won't turn brown. If it does turn brown, it's still fine. You can still eat it. It just looks weird. I'm gonna try to roll this now. I'm not the best burrito roller. They would not hire me at Chipotle. Probably. Boom! There it is. Ta-da! Jazz hands. Alright. Ain't nothing left to do but try it. It looks really good. I hope that it tastes as good as it looks. Woo, it's spicy. That was a kick. When the rice is limey, the guacamole and sour cream are super creamy, potatoes salty. It's good. It's missing the Cali sauce though. So I think next time I'll definitely make the Chipotle sauce. But this is a really good burrito. 10 out of 10. Would recommend. I didn't even think I was that hungry, but this is really good. Nailed it. It's satisfying my need for a huge burrito when we can't go to restaurants right now, which is the point. Satisfy your craving at home, learn something new, explore different dishes, make them at home, and save money, because now I have all these leftovers. I can make probably another, I don't know, at least 6 burritos out of this. It's a win-win. Hope you guys like this video and you learned some new techniques about how to make your salsa, your rice, your meat, shrimp, any element like that. If you guys have any places, any restaurants, any diners that you love a dish from and you've been craving it recently, leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Bye!